Welcome back. A reminder of our top stories on Al Jazeera. Protesters in Yemen have gathered for another day of demonstrations in the capital, Sana'a. Security forces have been trying to block access to the city. The president, Ali Abdullah Saleh, said on Monday he plans to announce a national unity government. In Libya, Muammar Gaddafi's forces have been fighting back against anti-government fighters. Air Force jets bombed a rebel-held ammunition depot in the city of AlJazeera, east of Tripoli, on Monday. Well, that's what the Libyan leader thinks of calls for him to step down. Muammar Gaddafi claims he is still loved by his people. All right, joining us now is Tariq Youssef, who is the founding dean of the Dubai School of Government, in the studio with us here in Doha. Thank you very much, Tariq, for being here. First off, let me get your reaction on Gaddafi's comments and his interview yesterday with the international media. Is this a leader in denial, or is this a delusional leader, or is this a really well-calculated PR stunt, do you think?
I think at this point in time, it's both delusional, in denial, disconnected from reality. He's possibly playing to his remaining loyalists in the political establishment and the military, trying to boost their morale and keep them fighting. But from all other indicators we're getting inside the country and outside, he has lost control over...
But how long, you speak of his loyalists, how long do you think, and what will it take for those loyalists to also abandon him?
The more pressure that is piled on him, and we've seen calls from the international community yesterday, determination to pile more pressure on him and his military commanders and political loyalists. The more pressure that's piled, the more they're likely to defect. We're seeing already signs in the streets of Tripoli today of increases in gas prices, bakeries reporting shortages, rice prices, wheat. The entire power base around him is very soon going to realize that the point of no return, where he will have to leave the country, is getting closer.
But in his interview yesterday, he said that was the last thing he would do, leave the country. He seems very keen to project confidence, even during that interview. You spoke of Tripoli, and we have indeed heard reports of protests in Tripoli. How secure is his grip on the capital right now?
Around his compound, it's pretty secure. But now with allies moving naval and air assets very close in the Mediterranean, the option suddenly of using a military force to oust him is also rising. So his grip might be still strong within his neighborhood, within the compound, where he could still maintain some elements of command and control. But I think, given the trend of the last week, it's only a matter of time before that grip is finally loosened. And he may not have to leave the country. He may be just
community. A hardening stance from leaders we heard yesterday at the Geneva meeting of the UN Human Rights Council. You've got the American forces moving, some forces in the region. We also have Hillary Clinton saying that they will back the opposition movements in Libya. Is this a good thing, you think, for the opposition movements in Libya, that they're getting the support of the international community, or will this perhaps create a backlash for them?
Having the option of using external military forces is a plus, morally and psychologically for them. A no-fly zone would be perceived as a plus as well. Anything short of actual ground troops in Libya, in my view, would be welcomed by opposition forces, especially if it further weakens and hastens the departure of Gaddafi from the scene.
All right, thank you very much, Tariq Youssef, for your analysis. Now, the uprisings in North Africa have put other repressive governments under pressure. Opposition activists meeting in Zimbabwe last week have been arrested and charged with treason. Jonah Hall reports from neighbouring South Africa.
Munyaradzi Gwizai is a former opposition member of Zimbabwe's parliament and the man who convened a meeting last Saturday in Harare to discuss the uprisings in North Africa. Gwizai and 45 others were arrested, allegedly tortured. They now face a charge of treason that carries the death penalty.
He obviously would like another government to rule the country, so that's not a secret. But I think, yeah, these are intellectuals, these are community workers, these are not people that are any threat. So this is it's paranoia, it's simple paranoia.
With Kwizai and his fellow alleged plotters behind bars, President Robert Mugabe celebrated his 87th birthday in traditional style. In this, his 31st year in power, not many Zimbabweans are celebrating. Some talk quietly of insurrection, but with past elections marred by violence and so many among the youth and educated middle classes having fled, it's unclear where change will come from. Perhaps from outside. The owner of a leading newspaper in neighbouring South Africa is Zimbabwean Trevor Nkube. In a recent editorial, he called on Zimbabweans to become their own liberators.
Welcome. There comes a time when that fear that plays at the back of your mind faces the reality of your oppression, and you cross the line and you say, yes, these are the possibilities that might be visited upon me, but I, as a human being, deserve a better life.
Here in South Africa, where Zimbabweans have come to find work or safety in their many hundreds of thousands, there's fairly open talk about what events up north could mean for Zimbabwe. But it's talk in small pockets, far from home, without cohesion or momentum. An email doing the rounds inside and outside Zimbabwe calls for a 1 million citizen march in Harare on Tuesday. It's linked to a Facebook page which only has about 230 members. What could be a sign of online activism is instead greeted with skepticism. Some believe it's the work of the security services, designed to lure activists onto the streets to be arrested. It's the sort of suspicion, laced with fear, that makes any substantial challenge to Mugabe's rule seem unlikely for now. Jonah Hull, AlJazeera, Johannesburg.
A heavy military presence is back on the streets of the Tunisian capital. It comes just a day after the Prime Minister bowed out following a wave of protests. 2 ministers have also now resigned from the caretaker government. Egypt's top prosecutor has imposed a travel ban on former President Hosni Mubarak and his family. He's also ordered a freeze on all their financial assets inside the country. New Zealand came to a standstill on Tuesday as the nation marked a week since a powerful earthquake struck. Veronica Pedrosa reports on a day of mourning for the victims of the Christchurch quake.
A Maori elder calls to welcome the living and mourn the dead. The Prime Minister and top officials bow their heads. Bricks from the ruins of Christchurch symbolise the devastation around them. And New Zealand stopped, a week to the minute since a powerful earthquake. Emergency crews from around the world too silenced their jackhammers. They joined millions of New Zealanders in sombre tribute. 2 minutes of silence to remember the dead and missing. Prime Minister John Keys called it one of New Zealand's darkest days. The official death toll is still rising.
The number is fluctuating, but the figure that you've quoted of around